acquired the Old Fitzgerald brand in 1999, Parker Beam and Craig Beam had never made wheated bourbon before. So it was exactly what Bernie just said. You know, it was, and I just have some lawnmowers coming on behind me. Let me know if it's too loud, and I'll move back into another space. If you can hear that stuff behind me. So Parker and Craig really just wanted to focus on, like Bernie said, meeting the demand for the Old Fitzgerald in the places where it was already being sold. And, you know, again, if it was with the resurgence of, you know, the Russell's reserves and all the small batches and single barrels and all that, we sort of saw the need and the need for something like that in the wheated bourbon space. And the same year that we had acquired the Old Fitzgerald brand, the true story of who Old Fitzgerald actually was came out in a book that a woman named Sally Van Winkle Campbell has written. That name may sound a little familiar to you because Sally is the granddaughter of Julian Pappy Van Winkle, who is one of the folks, if not the man, that really made and popularized the brand Old Fitzgerald, especially in the 20th century. And when Pappy Van Winkle and the Cecil Weller Distillery owned the Old Fitzgerald brand, they continued selling the brand on the story that Old Fitzgerald was, and John Fitzgerald was his true name, but Old Fitzgerald was the greatest palate in the distillery, maybe in Bourbon County, maybe in Kentucky. And any of the barrels that he had been tasting, those were the ones that were going immediately into the bottles labeled Old Fitzgerald. Well, the story that Sally details in the book, Always Find Bourbon, the story of Pappy Van Winkle and John Fitzgerald, details that yes, John Fitzgerald did work at the distillery, but he did not work for the distillery. He worked for the U.S. government in the Treasury Department, and he was actually the bondsman there in charge of making sure that the distillery was paying the government all of its proper taxes and monies owed, measuring the gauges of the barrels as they went into the warehouses to age and as they came out of the barrel warehouses to get dumped. And as a part of that job, he was the only one that had keys to give him basically unfettered access to the warehouses and the rick houses at any time of day. So old Johnny was sneaking in the middle of the night, stealing sips from not just the best barrels, but all the barrels, therefore committing larceny. So think about all those bottles that you have on your shelf, looking across from you and downstairs, as you said, Frank, and think about all the stories that you hear, and whether it be American whiskey, Scotch whiskey, Indian whiskey, Japanese whiskey, etc. A lot of those stories are great. A lot of them are truth. A lot of them have some truth, and a lot of them have come up in boardrooms as well, right? Found their origination in boardrooms from marketing teams. How amazing is it to be able to create a brand based on a true story that is nuts and quote unquote Wild West, if you will. I mean, imagining Johnny Fitzgerald sneaking in the middle of the night, stealing sips from barrels with a whiskey thief is like, I can close my eyes and I can see the Hollywood movie, right? With John Wayne as playing John Fitzgerald. So that was the origin story of the brand, and our Johnny Fitzgerald Larceny, as I call it, was launched in 2012, and its purpose from go was to be our sort of the new engine, if I can use that term, Bernie, to pull the train of the Fitzgerald brand and legacy. And we launched it in 6 markets in the United States in 2012. In 2018, it finally became a fully distributed product throughout the U.S. And then it sounds like it is now making its way into some international markets, which is really, really amazing. I mean, we haven't really touched on this too much, but so much of what we do at Heavan Hill really focuses on the U.S. and the North American market. And we've got so much work to do, which is really exciting, to spread the love, the knowledge, the word of Heavan Hill throughout the world. So it's really exciting being a part of programs like this and talking to folks, especially as larceny is hitting the market. I mean, it sounds like, I think you just said it just arrived on the docks.
Yeah.
Again, I can close my eyes and I can picture the Hollywood movie of the cases arriving on the dock. So cool. And, you know, being that I'm based in the Bay Area, I actually reached out to a couple of Filipino bartending friends. Mary Palak, who's down in San Jose at Paper Plane, is a good friend, and she's just a rising superstar in the bar industry, I guess globally. And I said, you know, I'm going to be on this program tomorrow, and they're curious about what whiskeys are going to be good for the Filipino palate. And I'm like, I'm not Filipino. The only access I have to the Filipino market and the palate was when my dad would come back there from doing business in the 80s and bringing me mango concentrate, a little brand called Mango Tango that we used to put on our Breyers vanilla ice cream. And she was like, well, you're sort of spot on. The palate is, we like sweet, we like tropical. And I said, well, when you're talking about whiskeys, she's like, you know, I haven't been back in a number of years, but it's from what I hear, American whiskeys are really starting to make way. And the Heavan Hill portfolio, you know, the ones that I love and think would be great over there are Mellecorn, which we just talked about. I didn't know that y'all had Georgia Moon over there, so that one obviously fits in as well too. And then Larceny and our Bernheim wheat whiskey. I don't know if y'all have that over there, but
we made sure.
Oh, not great. I mean, I would say that, you know, if the general population of the Philippines is starting out making a conversion from gin-based drinks, rum-based drinks, tropical drinks, and they want to get into American whiskeys, you know, the term that Bernie and I have actually coined for Bernheim, we every now and again sitting in a bar is training wheels whiskey.
Yeah.
Because it's very approachable. I don't mean that in a negative sense at all. Bernheim is so darn approachable, and then it plays so nicely as you ramp up into Larceny. Similar mash bills, you know, Bernheim is 51% wheat and 37% corn, 14% or 12% malted barley, and then Larceny is 68% corn, 20% wheat, probably the most wheat of any wheated bourbon out there, actually. But they present themselves as sort of a nice ramp up into the bourbon category. And at 90 proof at Bernheim, especially if your Georgia Moon is 100 proof, you know, you're starting at 90 proof with Bernheim. You're getting in nice and, for the most part, nice and easy, ramping it up to 92 with Larceny. And then your Mellecorn and your Georgia Moons at 100 proof. I mean, that's a heck of a flight there to really show the breadth of what American whiskey can be, and then to be totally humble, the expertise of what we're doing, what Connor O'Driscoll and our team at Heavan Hill are doing at our distillery in Louisville, and then our aging facilities out in Bardstown.